So this is the video for Marpha Castle, the second chapter of chapter 1. It's once again a simple cavalry rush, so if I'm repeating myself or not giving the most interesting commentary, sorry, but there's much to say. I was very concerned at this point that Ira would kill Finn because he was at 3 health. There was no good way to block him off, so I just hoped that he wouldn't die, and thought I might have to do an absurd amount of RNG abuse to make sure that 2 of Ira's attacks missed, but I was actually very pleasantly surprised when almost immediately she went for Ethelyn and even more luckily missed her first attack. So that turned out much better than I thought it would. You know, the massive mosh pit around you. Soon I'll be fighting that, but it's better than fighting half of it near the castle and half of it out there, because then they get in the way. So, Mrs. Ethelyn. I'm recruiting Ira because although I think it might technically be possible to avoid recruiting her and get an 8-turn clear of the other castle, I know it's almost certainly possible with growths, but without growths I'm not sure if it's possible, and even more so, Ira helps out quite a bit in the next chapter during Mac Lily and Augusty Castle, which you'll see more later, but that's probably the hardest part of the playthrough, probably the second hardest part of the playthrough to plan well and work out, so getting rid of her there it might lose me a turn, it might not, but it would make the whole thing far harder to plan. And also the fact I need a high kill hero sword for the 2nd generation to pass down to Celis, and I need like a 50 kill hero sword by chapter 8, and without the one you get in the 1st generation, there'd be no way to feed enough kills onto the 2nd generation hero sword, so the potential turn lost in recruiting Ira is definitely worth it. I have no doubts about that. Even though she doesn't do a huge amount in this generation because, well, she doesn't have a horse, so. Even though Astra is nice, especially when you're RNG abusing, it just doesn't come up that often. And I'm already running out of things to say because this is not too much going on here. But one of the things I am trying to do is feed as much money onto Do as possible so that he can dump a bunch of money onto Lacus's next chapter, because I need her promoted by chapter 4, and she can't afford the elite ring by herself. And yeah, sometimes I have to do a bit of RNG abuse to get people to dodge things, especially those bows, because Do is near death, but oh, spoiler alert, Irhen gets massacred. But I really don't enjoy this chapter much. It's just the end part is very poorly designed, and the beginning doesn't have much strategic depth. It's just a full-out cavalry rush. The only interesting things going on are me trying to get Azel and Ideen together quickly, sending Quan ahead to bait out enemies, and more things on the last castle, but here it's just killing as many enemies as I can. So one more strategic thing that I am taking advantage of at this point is throwing Ethelyn really far out into the open, which normally isn't a good thing to do with your frail healers, but she has high HP and often gets lover, sibling, and authority bonuses, and has weapon triangle advantage against almost every enemy except for the archers, so she's not very likely to die. Quan is at a far greater risk of death than her, but he's still alright. Alec and Noish, it's mostly this part is just trying to get Sigurd and Ethelyn near the gate, and Quan super far ahead, and all the others do is clear out the people blocking them. A fair number of these enemies won't be killed because there simply isn't the time. I don't bother bringing Ira over. She might get there in time to help, but I was too lazy to adjust my strategy for such a minor thing, especially because getting experience and kills for Ira doesn't matter, because though if I really wanted to, I could have her promote at some point in the playthrough, because she can clear arenas pretty well with Astra, even without growths. It wouldn't be much point to. Holland is a better unit than her in every way on 0% growths. So yeah. Unfortunately, the whole everyone attack Ethlyn decoy didn't work out too well here because she was blocked off pretty quickly, but I'm taking advantage of it in the next chapter. In the next turn. Alright, so now actually things to comment on again. Most of the later chapters won't be this boring to watch. There are actually things going on, skills getting exploited, and all of that, but the beginning of the game can be a slog sometimes. Just simple brute forcing your way through. Here I have the reason I don't have go on to cover is so that Axe users will actually attack him, because when he's on cover they have a 0% hit rate, and I want him to get attacked by as many people as possible so that he can collect more gold. I also had him attack the Brigand because they always carry 5,000 gold, which is a lot. I was a bit concerned when I first did this that they'd all gang up on someone like Lex, and if they had attacked Lex a lot, I'm pretty certain that he would have died. But the AI really loves to attack Ethlyn, even though it's pretty illogical and doesn't do anything good for them. So this is completely safe. Which I mean, it's what happens with these older games. That can be pretty bad. And so one thing in these chapters, these Verdane chapters, is I usually, whenever I can, I prioritize Quan's continues to be on archers, because they're obviously harder to take down, not because they're super bulky, but simply because I don't get to counterattack. So whenever possible, and as you can see, Quan is running as far ahead as he can to pull out and in preparation for the next castle. I had to plan the random numbers a bit here so that Finn wouldn't die. Ethlyn didn't have time to heal him, so he's staying out of safety and getting walled off at the end of this turn, but he managed to poke in and get a kill. Finn doesn't do, well, pretty much none of the unpromoted cavalry besides Ethlyn and Nadir do a whole lot this playthrough, but Finn has his uses, definitely. The prayer skill can be exploited quite well. Yeah, this was a point where I rigged a critical, because otherwise he'd be able to run around and attack Finn. And though I probably could rig a dodge for Finn, it would just make the strategy more, as much as I will RNG abuse to get better turn counts, I prefer reliable strategies because RNG abusing is slow in Fire Emblem 4 because you have to go through a bunch of arena fights, and I'd prefer to not do it if I could. So here is Ethlyn getting attacked by almost everything, and being completely fine because the AI shouldn't be attacking her, it's just stupid that way. Meaning that even though Lex definitely could have been killed there, he wasn't. Which is good. Not that Lex dying would be that big of a deal, because on this playthrough, more so in the second generation than the first, I don't really care about having characters die, because a lot of them are just useless always and forever, or have a very short-term use and then kind of fall out of relevance. And once that happens, I see no reason to keep them alive, since I'm not doing full recruitment. I'm not restricting myself to keeping all the characters alive either. So here, Midir is clearing the way out for Ethlin. Charge again was rigged, but that's what makes Midir so good when you're willing to RNG abuse. The fact that charge can be pretty much like an instant kill skill if you're lucky with it. And here, the javelin that Sigurd bought comes into use. It's good for clearing paths, especially later on, but here it allows him and Ethlin to charge out ahead. So most of the other enemy phases were actually pretty reliable. Like, there wasn't that huge of a risk or anything. I might have had to RNG use to make outcomes a little bit better, but this one is actually very unreliable. Midir faces a lot of attacks, and it took me a while. It's nowhere near as bad as some later enemy phases in the playthrough, but it's not that bad. Unfortunately, I tried to rig a critical to break a do out so that he could steal money from another barbarian, but it didn't work out. He 1 HP short, because my characters are really bad. So much trouble talking about this chapter. It's just the epitome of Mount Emblem. But so here, Duke gets a kill. Not that it matters. He's not promoting. It might be nice to get him promoted to chapter 4, but it would also probably be impossible on 0% growth, or it would just take so much patience that I would never be willing to put in the time. So here's the rigging to make it actually survivable, because even more so than they like to target Ethlin, the AI loves to target Midir, which makes a lot more sense than with Ethlin, because he's actually vulnerable, doesn't get weapon triangle advantage against these axe users, and can't, well, Ethlin's counterattacks are negligible. But the good thing is, since Midir has the speed ring, it's better. It's still not good, but it's better. So this boss kill is quite unreliable. Sigurd needs to either get 2 lover crits with a steel sword, or a lover crit with, sorry, not lover, god, that would be, well, it's Fire Emblem 4, so it wouldn't be that out of the ordinary, but still. No, a sibling crit on Gandalf. He either needs 2 with the steel sword, or 1 with the steel lance, and then another hit. The steel lance one is like 2.5% chance, and the other one is, the steel sword one I think is below 1%, I don't know exactly, but for some reason the random numbers worked out so that I got 2 steel sword crits first in the Iron Chain, so on the 9th turn, double steel sword crit. Thank God this is over. It was a pain to commentate. The next castle will be more interesting.